So hi, it's me again. You haven't heard from me for a longer time, but this is totally not thanks to basically Inventor working as expected, only because I was busy with other stuff than designing and working in Inventor. But today I have just installed 2021 version and currently I have this very simple assembly that proves and shows that Inventor is still not capable of properly solving very simple sets of elements. So as you can see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 elements all together, and they are very simple set of elements that basically has very few constraints, and still it is not okay. So this, I originally thought I will use it as a flexible component, but if it is not working as a flat assembly, so without any flexibility, then actually there is no point in going with flexibility. So I will now demonstrate how this assembly can be constrained basically in a way that some constraints are violated and Inventor doesn't give any indication of anything being wrong, and that it accepts the bad solution just without anything. It just accepts the bad solution, and although the constraints are not followed and they are not they are not being met, everything seems to be fine, which in consequence leads to a situation where Inventor, if thinks the elements are in proper position but in fact they are somewhere else, this brings other assemblies that use this assembly as a subassembly into positions that they do not accept, and everything breaks, as in many of the videos before. So now this rectangular piece of tube is constrained to the basically to the assembly itself. Now we have this pattern of tubes. The first tube is constrained, so it is positioned in relation to this rectangular tube. Also it has a constraint with this rod inside, and this rod inside is constrained, so basically it can just rotate this little bit to allow some tilt. This was originally thought, and I will just be making it. This is a hinge for a whatever purpose it is, but this is a hinge that I'm just in fact building. So the other tube is basically placed with the pattern along the z-axis of the assembly. So because the first tube is fully constrained, so it has 0 degrees of freedom, so the other tube also is precisely positioned just opposite of the first one, and this rod is constrained to the second tube, so it is aligned with the second tube, of course. And the reason why this rod is not done with the same pattern is that each of the let's say rods can rotate independently, and basically it can get alignment like that. So, and these side plates are just welded to the rods, so they are constrained with the rods. And now what I will just show you is that it is possible to get this. I will get so to get this tube and constrain it so it is not here. Actually, the pattern exactly positions this tube here, and it has 0 degrees of freedom, and I can still constrain this tube in a way so it is not here, so it is totally somewhere else. And now, and of course this is wrong, because then the pattern is violated and basically it doesn't work. So firstly I will try to drag this plate. Oh, what a surprise. And this tube now, according to this pattern, this tube is here, but actually it is there, and Inventor doesn't give any indication of anything being wrong. So now let's try to go a step further and try to constrain this tube, so to force it to be in this position. So let's apply a constraint between let's say this plane and the axis of this tube. Let's say okay, and currently the pattern says this tube is here, but the constraint, where is this constraint? But the constraint says this tube is here. So currently we have two constraints, which one of them is a pattern and the other one is a made constraint, which says totally different thing. The pattern tells this tube to be here and the constraint tells this tube to be there, and of course, as I told you in advance, Inventor doesn't give any indication of anything being wrong. Now we can even go a step further and ask Inventor to rebuild this assembly, and I will just click again and again, so there is nothing, there is no doubt I done it. So actually this is a total mess in constraint solver, and violation, and not violation but validation of the result that Inventor is getting. So clearly position of this tube is against the position which pattern requires for this tube to be. So as before, as many times before, total mess in constraint solving, and even if it is most current version of Inventor, most up to date, it is still not working for the very basic cases. So I really don't know what I can add more to that. This is basically, I'm not so self-explanatory. This pattern requires this tube to be here, and this constraint requires this tube to be here. So they are totally opposite constraints, and Inventor accepts it. So total mess, and nothing will work on the on grounds that, on the foundations that are this bad. Oh.